Welcome to week 7 of Carole Tuesday, the futuristic music AI show where we haven't seen a single AI song performed yet. We've only seen two girls do lives. And last week we got what I like to think is our equivalent of a beach episode where we saw the girls go to this music festival where we meet all these characters that are probably going to be significant going forward. And we don't exactly know how they're going to play into the story yet, but there's not really anything that they've told us about them that's significant. We haven't learned about their journey or anything. We also don't know if they're AI musicians or genuine grassroots musicians. That's also something we haven't been told. So after last episode, we're kind of in this in-between space where Carole Tuesday are kind of looking to go big. They're going for a bigger venue after they performed at the small live club. And in the theme of the show, generally when they go for these get-rich-quick schemes, it doesn't really work out well. So let's see what happens this episode. So this obviously reminds me of shows like The Voice, American Idol, and things like that. And when they first came on the scene in the early 2000s, they were considered like a great way to find new talent and like just a good way to go to the very like grassroots level and find talent that maybe doesn't have the advantages of knowing someone in the industry or something like that. But over the years, they've become demonized as essentially what they really are, which is exploitative places where people who are really good at what they do get taken advantage of and used for entertainment purposes for larger companies and then just discarded after the fact with no, regard to their success or their long-term career in the industry or anything like that. So and this show is pretty like harsh with how it treats these kind of musical themes, like music festivals. In the music festival last episode, there was this particular guy in a band who just showed up completely messed up to the festival and couldn't even perform. And they kind of talk about things like that every episode, and by setting it in the future, they kind of insulate themselves from reproach because you can't really say anything about it because their defense could obviously be, oh, it's set in the future, it's not really talking about anything that's happening today. But if you look closely at it, it is talking about things that happen today. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of stuff they say about just these kind of talent shows that have really taken the reality show world by storm to some extent, because you had American Idol, then you have X Factor, The Voice, America's Got Talent, various other shows. It's kind of just ballooned into its own industry, really. So let's see what the show has to say. And there we get our first kind of criticism of this kind of talent show industry, right? They're not looking for the best artists out there. They're looking for the artists they can sell. And that's why on American Idol every season you have 5 different people who have a sob story about something, and you have 4 other people who are just insanely attractive for no reason, and they all just have storylines, and they have to have some kind of story that they can sell to the public. So when they're trying to get these people that they can sell to the public, obviously they're looking for every manner of sale, and what sells more than sex? Nothing. So and there you have typical old school Gus just saying, oh, you only got like $9 out of this, but you know what, I'm going to take good care of those $9 because he doesn't have any money at all. And he makes it look like he's successful or whatever, but we know the true story. He's just a retired, now or ex-alcoholic manager who's just found them out of nowhere, and he's just trying to, take them, go along for the ride. I mean, he cares and everything, but he's not the most successful or knowledgeable manager out there. So he's doing his thing, getting them $9 after tax. And it's kind of like when you go to the first gig after you've been doing open mics for like years, and you're like, oh, I made $10 doing this gig. I shall cherish this $10 for as long as I live. That's kind of the vibe I got from this. And really, that's what the show is going for, right? We're in a completely different setting on a completely different planet, and nothing is the same, but somehow everything is the same because they're just doing the same things in a different place. So this show is always doing that. They're showing the musician's journey, but like kind of exaggerated to the next level, where Carole Tuesday have to deal with all this crazy stuff, which we don't have to deal with in the current world, but we actually do. They just look different. Yo, okay. So as much as the show comments on music industry, it also comments on the nature of fame itself quite a bit, right? So we have on one hand Angela, who's the industry plant. She's gotten 12 million in funding to become a musical name. And then we have this guy who's like just played by this voice actor to like the next ridiculous level. It's clearly some kind of influencer parody. And the show's verdict on him is not generous at all. Like they treat him like straight up fame whore, just out there to be more and more famous. It's interesting to see that they actually went with people recognizing him and like going over to see who he is. The other approach would have been to just be like, he thinks he's famous, but he's not actually famous, which is kind of how the influencer culture works nowadays. If you've been paying attention in the news, you know that in multiple places around the world, in especially very touristy places, very scenery heavy places, they've just kind of banned influencers in general. Like if you whip out your camera and start taking pictures of yourself, they will escort you off the premises, just because of all the stunts that they've pulled over the years in those places, which has led to either property damage or just loss of revenue or any number of things. And the number of hotels that no longer accept influencers as guests is also insanely high, because people just send emails to hotels asking if they can stay for free in exchange for exposure. So this is a pretty good way to tackle this. You could probably go even more heavy. If this guy ends up being on the show with the girls and Angela, it'll be fun to see what else they say about him. Because the show clearly does not like influencers, and neither does anyone else in the real world. So that kind of jives. Wait, what? Okay. I mean, they're obviously, doing the whole character thing. Every season of American Idol, I don't know if Simon Cowell's retired, but when he used to be on it, they used to really put these characters on because he would just roast them, or sometimes just completely flip and do the unexpected and be supportive of someone who has no idea what they're doing. This is like a time-honored just staple of the whole talent industry or the talent show industry is this like person who thinks they're good but has no idea what they're doing, is completely delusional about their talent and their ability. So that's good to see. Also, this puppet is hilarious. It's hard for me to believe this isn't just Watanabe just pulling out a Space Dandy on us and being like, you thought I forgot about Space Dandy? No, I didn't. I didn't forget. I forget nothing. Check this out. And brings us this dude. I find it hard for me to believe that's not the case. But anyway, let's keep going. Okay, Carole. We didn't know you had a story. To be fair, we don't know much about the backstory of either of these girls, except that they, are now doing music. We don't really know much about them. So it's good to hear about this. Let's see what the show says about it, because right now we're just looking at it. But from the reaction that everyone has, nobody expected her to be from a refugee camp. So there's that. Oh my god. Oh, so this is commenting on like the show mom phenomena. Clearly she was abusive when she was living with her manager here. And if you've seen any of these shows where they have like these little kids that do the talent shows, because that's another subset of this whole talent show industry is little kid talent shows. That's where like Honey Boo Boo became famous. I'm pretty sure. And they have all these parents, which are like the driving force of these kids joining these shows and having these talents in the first place. These parents just push the kids to do all this stuff. And at no point is it clear that the kids want to do it themselves. It kind of they just kind of follow along what their parents want of them. And here Angela is portrayed in the same exact way. She's so young that she's been doing it for so long that you kind of suspect that she was pushed into this too. And not only does it show that, it also shows that her guardian / manager was abusive to her at some point in the past. So it's interesting that they comment on that, because that is pretty prevalent in this industry, especially with kid actors. And when they age up, before they make it big as an adult. Really, they don't have much freedom in that sense. Even if they have made a lot of money, it usually goes into a trust that the parents set up or something like that. So freedom is generally not an option, and they're kind of just stuck in that until they have the ability to leave if they choose to do so. It's interesting that they show Angela doing so because it hints at what her character arc might be. And really, this episode is setting up a lot of different character arcs and giving us more character information than we've seen before, which is good to see because we are in episode 7 now, and this is a 2-cour show, so we're almost 1/3 of the way through. And we haven't really learned that much about the characters or the setting. We've seen a lot of adventures and zany stuff happen. We haven't really seen like the core motivations of any of the characters yet. So I'd be interested to see what that ends up being, but this obviously makes Angela a much more interesting character than I thought she was before. And also this cab looks really cool. I want to ride in a mint cab one day. Okay, let's keep going. I know I talk about kind of the overarching themes and stuff like that, but we can't forget the moment-to-moment kind of aesthetic mastery that Watanabe kind of has displayed in the past and does so now. So this is a novel thing, but let's try this. Rewinding back, take a look at this shot, right? So you have 3 of the characters lit in yellow light in the background, and then Tuesday in the foreground lit in blue. Obviously, don't think much of it, but it's an aesthetic choice to illustrate mood of the characters at this point in time. 3 of them are pretty satisfied with themselves, happy about how the audition went. Tuesday, by virtue of wearing sunglasses during the audition, was reminded that she is in fact a runaway, that she has run away from home and her parents and her brother are still looking for her, and she's worried about that at all times. So she's kind of distracted by this, and at this moment she feels kind of out of the loop. So we get that illustrated by this blue light versus yellow light contrast, and then cut to this shot where you have Tuesday on the left side of the stage, out of the light, in the darkness, and the 3 other characters in the light. This is just a moment-to-moment kind of stuff that you can't really talk about when you're doing a reaction like this. But I do like to point it out at some point because you do have to realize that the director is really kind of a visionary in this field, and he knows what he's doing in a way that we don't really see in other anime at all. This in particular is just a very cool aesthetic choice that you might see in a movie, but maybe not in other anime. So I just thought I'd point that out. Random secret handshake, dude. Okay. Since they made it, is this the Carole Tuesday version of a tournament arc? I don't see how else you could do one in music. I just thought I'd say that. That was funny. Are we going to have music battles against people? Clearly this is going to be a multi-episode arc. I thought this was going to be a kind of like commentary and flame out type one-shot, but it's clear that they're doing something else. It'd be interesting to see what. Is this going to go all the way till the end of this, end of this first cour? I hope so. It's kind of an interesting take on this whole thing that they've been doing so far, just with all the characters that we saw and all the, we haven't seen much about the judges yet. I wonder if they're going to do something about that because that would be interesting also. This is the tournament arc in Carole Tuesday. Calling it now. So that was episode 7. They got selected in the end, which I think is even just too generous of a take on talent shows, because that means that genuine talent gets recognized by the talent shows, which I'm not sure is the case or has been proven to be not the case in certain circumstances. But obviously you can't continue the story about the talent show without them getting accepted, so I'm willing to concede that they do need to get accepted, I guess. Interesting episode. We did get to learn more about the characters this episode. It seems that we've now firmly established the setting and just the plot structure that we're going to see. And where we first had a couple of one-offs, we've really gotten into the meat of the story now, more than halfway into the first cour. So this is kind of a slow-paced show, I would definitely say. Now that we're in episode 7, I think it's going to go till the end of the 12th episode, where the first cour will end with this whole talent show thing. It could go even further since Angela's also participating, and I'm assuming that we're going to see other characters also introduced because these are 2 of the 8 participants. is it's good. This reminds me of the Chunin exam from Naruto for some reason, because the way it's structured, like where it falls in the story, like it falls just after the first bit of story, and it shows us more about the world, more about the characters, more about what they're dealing with, and everything to that regard. I just think it's interesting that they've chosen to go this talent show route, just because I thought they were going to go more organic and grassroots. But maybe the show is trying to tell us that that's not really possible in a world like this, where there are so many other forces that are being pushed by so much money. You really have to do something kind of grand to make a name for yourself. Or it could just be as simple as this is what they wanted to comment on, and they thought this was the best way to do so was by having the characters in the talent show. Clearly, the show has some teeth for the music industry. It does like to get its little jabs in there. So I'd be interested to see what they come up with for the next couple of episodes on what they think talent shows are wrong with them or have wrong with them. Clearly, we saw the whole character thing and milking the sob stories and everything in this episode. So we'll see what happens when they move on to the next stages and what the show thinks about what's wrong with those later stages with the voting and everything like that. So that's that for episode 7. Stay tuned for episode 8. I'm sure it's going to be just as fun. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next episode.